like in Cannes.
Now, last week you'll have heard our interview with Russell Crowe on playing the title role in Robin Hood, which is out today. In particular, you may have enjoyed Russell Crowe giving Mark a hard time over an article he didn't actually write. Try your Ridley Scott question again, Mark.
So, Mark, when we met...
Yes.
Just give me a bit more context, because I might remember the conversation.
Well, it was the first time we met.
He's got a quiff.
It was in a hotel in Leicester Square. You were over for the opening of Romper Stomper,
right.
And I had a quiff then.
Who were you working
for? The New Musical Express back then.
Absolute. That interview, right? I didn't mind the interview, but the way that was printed, I read NME as a young teenager.
No,
as
hold
a
on.
musician.
You're thinking of Gavin Martin's piece in the NME.
Well, that was Romper Stomper.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Gavin Martin did an interview with you for the NME. I was working at the NME, but I interviewed you for Radio 5 immediately before Gavin Martin. Gavin Martin, who is an Irish guy who looks nothing like me, and I know exactly the piece you're referring to. Right. And I will pass on to him your best wishes.
Yeah, where the headline was something like, racist Crowe or something.
Yeah, that was not me.
That was so uncool, man. To be on by the Bible of your youth. That was just so uncool.
But I know that it all came right because you had such a great experience with the Radio 5 interviewer beforehand, Russell. If you remember that, I was the other guy. I was the guy you don't remember.
The nice one.
At this point, I'm imagining Mark running for all his life with Russell with a quiver full of arrows, and he pulls one out and he puts it in his bow.
Straight in the arse.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a little bit from last week with Russell Crowe.
You're enjoying that far too much, Simon.
That was very good. However, in comparison with how that went, that's like a breeze. That was like a joy. That was like interviewing the Queen. In comparison with the Russell Crowe experience that was had by one Mark Lawson, the venerable Mark Lawson from BBC Radio 4's Front Row. Hello, Mark.
Hello, I'm not that venerable. I'm younger than Kermode, I think. But anyway, there we go.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go. Thank you for setting the record. It's sort of venerable. Venerable doesn't imply age, does it? Just implies kind of noteworthy.
Oh, okay, fine. I'm
seniority.
Sorry.
That's
what
Mark.
When he says venerable, what he means is authoritative as opposed to old.
Good.
But thank you for taking it like
that. Hi, Mark.
that.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes of your interview, which is terrific. Just explain, just sort of set it up for us. Just explain a little bit, Mark, and then we'll play sort of 2 minutes out of the heart.
OK, well, I come from Yorkshire. I was at one point a cultural ambassador for the county of Yorkshire, grew up there. And I went to see this film, and I had no idea what accent Russell Crowe was doing. And they told me beforehand that the pitch of the film was he didn't come from Nottinghamshire. And I thought, well, obviously, he came from Ireland, but went on holiday to Australia occasionally. And Russell Crowe, in the interview at the Dorchester, he didn't actually say what the idea was. He just said, the idea of this film is he comes from somewhere else. And so I'm afraid I asked him, are you trying to do him as Irish?
OK, so here's just a couple of minutes from Mark Lawson's interview with Russell Crowe.
You talk about where he comes from, the location of him, the accent you've given him. There are hints to me of Irish, but what were you thinking of in those terms?
You've got dead ears, mate. You seriously got dead ears if you think that's an Irish accent.
Hints of, I thought.
The break for him is that he has been estranged, in our version, estranged from his family for a long time. He has, marched from the south of France to Palestine and back. He's seen the great empires of his time, but he's been surrounded by other Englishmen. We just took the attitude that whatever you understood about whatever you think you know about Robin Hood, it was a previously understandable mistake. So we take some of other people's narrative ideas and we twist them around. So the name Loxley, for example, has become synonymous with Robin Hood, but we show you why that was a simple mistake to actually say that he really was this man Loxley. I'm a little dumbfounded that you could possibly find any Irish in that character. That's kind of ridiculous, but then it's your show. Whatever.
So you're going for... Well, no, I'm just asking. You're going for Northern English?
No, I was going for an Italian. Yeah. Missed it? Anyway.
The outlaw aspect of him, that must appeal to you at some level. I mean, there is an aspect of you that dislikes regulations, conventions.
Well, I think, in the social outcast, you can, you find the reality of the thought process of any given time.
Do you identify with that? But
I think that there's, it's a much more complex life, and therefore an interesting thing to follow. Somebody who will stand outside of the social tenets of his time. Yeah, but that's a broad statement.
And finally, you can either answer this or not. I just give you the chance because it's out there at the moment. As you know, that the suggestion you didn't want to say the famous line in Gladiator in this book that has come out. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't get the Irish thing, bro. I don't get it at all.
And at that stage, Mark Lawson, he's off.
At that stage, he was waving his cigarette at me, which was getting quite close to me, I felt, during the interview. He called me brother, though, which surprised me listening back. I thought it might be a word beginning with mother that he might have used at the time. So, in a way, he actually completed the interview. In fact, oddly enough, as Mark knows, as I came out of the interview, coming down in the lift, shaking, and my voice had gone completely dry, I rang Dr. Kermode. And like any good doctor, he said these symptoms are quite common after interviewing Russell Crowe, and you really shouldn't worry about it, and it will go away. But I think, Mark, it was about 30 seconds after the interview completed that I spoke to you, and we shared experiences.
We did. We both sort of swapped combat stories, and it is interesting that actually he does sound really, really cross at the suggestion that his accent was Irish. But the fact of the matter is, the movie played here in Cannes, right? It opened Cannes, and the talk of the Croisette has been, what accent is Russell Crowe doing? And what's interesting is exactly funnily enough, the point that you brought up is that the accent is so all over the place that people have been asking whether it's on purpose, whether, maybe he's not meant to come from there, maybe he's meant to, in the same way that Clive Barker had an accent that was somewhere between Liverpool and Los Angeles. It's like, is he in fact double bluffing us? Is he in fact doing something which is incredibly in-depth and complicated, or is it simply that he really genuinely thinks that Robin Hood did actually talk like this, but every now and then he went a little bit like, he'd go a little bit begorra, and then occasionally he'd say Eki Thup. But it is the talking point of the Croisette. What accent is he doing?
It is exactly that, Mark, because he is, as you say, a serious actor. He takes it very seriously. I thought he must be doing this on purpose. He's decided that the guy had had some kind of relative from Kilkenny or something, and it turns out it wasn't one of those ones. I think he reacted to the question because it must be at the back of his mind. He must know by now the accent hasn't worked.
Well, I just want to play you a particular speech from the film, which is a key point in the film. But Ollie in London on an email has been to see the film. As regards the accent, it's not, as Mark Lawson, Ollie says, condescendingly described as Irish, but take it from me, a rousing speech delivered by Russell Crowe in a Geordie accent. And it creates little rousing, but much giggling. Here's Russell Crowe, and I think actually maybe Ollie's onto something. Can you place this accent?
A king does not bargain for the loyalty that every subject owes him. Without loyalty, there is no kingdom. There is nothing.
I'm here to speak for Sir Walter Loxley.
Speak, if you must.
If you're trying to build for the future, you must set your foundations strong. The laws of this land enslave people to its king. A king who demands loyalty, but offers nothing in return. I have marched from France to Palestine and back. And I know, in tyranny lies only failure. You build a country like you build a cathedral, from the ground up. Empower every man, and you will gain strength.
Would you pass us some beer, please, Father? I mean, I'm not sure, and I think it's only because he was so sensitive to it that it's actually worth discussing. Because clearly, if we had to do a Tasmanian accent, maybe that's particularly tricky. But I think most people from these islands will go and see that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure you nailed that accent.